you know, if I'm still single at the end of this year, I'll definitely quit my job and become an entrepreneur. But if I'm not, you know, and I want to like get married and have kids, like maybe I'll stay in big tech because of maternity leave. The thing that I think that got me quite literally over the line was when I was running the New York Marathon. And I had this moment where I realized, oh my gosh, like
you're not gonna hit it.
For the first time in my life, I set a goal and I'm not gonna hit it. That to me became like the metaphor of becoming an entrepreneur, leaving corporate and like just running the race. It might not be perfect. The first thing I might do might fail. And it's okay because
this one's harder than the other one.
No, it'll be good. It'll be good. This is harder because it's more personal, because we care more.
No, I feel like I care more. All right, so here we are.
That's an awkward laugh. Let's start again.
That is a perfect starting. We have to keep that in. Okay, here we are. What's the big headline? Why are we here?
Oh my gosh. I quit my job.
That is the perfect way to open this podcast.
I know. I quit my job and I have 5 days left and I will no longer be in corporate.
All right, so you're quitting corporate. You're starting this podcast. We'll get into all of this stuff, but like, let's take a step back. What got you here? Give us the backstory of just your whole career.
Okay.
Like, where did you start? You're in corporate now. You're taking the leap. You have 5 days left. Oh, what led up to this?
Just stop saying I have 5 days left. I don't want to break down on the pod. Before I started in tech, I had two kind of shorter jobs. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. I don't know if we've ever talked about that.
I think we have. And I think you'd be a great lawyer, but continue.
I miss my calling. Yeah, I thought I was going to be a lawyer. My dad was a lawyer. My brother's a lawyer. Both my grandfathers are lawyers. So lawyers and teachers is where I'm from. And I got a job at a law firm, helping with their kind of recruitment summer program. And I was there, I don't know, a year and a half. And the lawyers were sleeping in their offices. And I was like, I don't know if that's for me. And so I left. And then very briefly, I went to a tech, it was like a recruiting firm that was placing executives in startups. And then right when I started there, I was recruited into Salesforce. And so I actually started my career as an executive assistant.
From executive assistant to executive.
Yes, executive assistant to executive. And I guess it was, less than 10 years. So I started in 2014 at Salesforce, and I was working in San Francisco, and I had that job for 3 years. And I think in the beginning, I started as an executive assistant. The main executive I worked for always referred to me as his chief of staff. And so I took on an expanded role. And then I remember I went to him and I said, I like what I'm doing. I'd love to be like a program manager or a project manager or take on a more official expanded role. And he had agreed that he would do that at the turn of fiscal, so it was 6 months away. And then I think I went back to him like 3 days later and I was like, so I still want to do that, but I'd like to move to Europe. So I reached out to everyone I knew that was there, that I'd met through the executive I was supporting or I had worked with at some point. And I interviewed for a couple of roles. And then finally, I got one. They said that they were excited for me to move. And I think it was December at that point, December 2016. And they said we would talk in January. And I got on the call in January and they said, all right, we're so excited. We're going to move you over here, but we're not going to move you to Dublin, which is where I originally wanted to go. We're going to move you to London. And so I moved to London. I got my first program manager role. I was super lucky that I got to support all of EMEA. So I was traveling across Europe and I was focused on basically pipe generation, pipe regression programs across the enterprise. And so that was really exciting. And I was there for almost 3 years. And then I actually pitched a job back to a leader in the US to move back. Ended up back in New York, got promoted to a senior manager, and then got promoted into a director role. and was asked to come over and help with basically pipeline methodology, sales operations, et cetera, as part of the acquisition of Tableau, basically snap how they were running the business to the Salesforce way. So everything from, again, pipe generation, pipe regression, forecasting, all of those things, account planning, all the sales process standard stuff. And then, so I was in still more of that project management, program management type role. And I really wanted to get into the sales strategy side, sales strategy and operations. And so there was a senior director role that was up to run global strategy and operations for the enterprise for Tableau. And it was kind of a big shot that I went for and ended up getting that role, which was really exciting.
Wow.
And then I got recruited by ZoomInfo. And so it's funny though, at that time when I was at Tableau, and I think the biggest team I had ever run was probably, I don't know, 10, not 15, under 15 people. And then I went over to ZoomInfo, my first VP job, and I think I had an org of 80.
Wow.
Half engineers. And so at that point, I'd always focused on sales programs, sales process, sales strategy, operations, but I had never had the tech stack. I had never been technical. I had never been taking the business process and actually automating it into the system. And so I took on that role, and I had 40, I think it was 35 or 40 engineers at that time, but I had a senior director that was working for me. And so she had 5 direct reports that were the leaders of that organization. But then she gave notice like my first 2 weeks.
Oh no.
So then I had 5 frontline engineering leaders reporting into me for a year. And so I had to learn pretty quickly. And that's kind of where I am now. I've been at ZoomInfo for 3 years, had the privilege of running the revenue operations organization. It's a really fun time to be in RevOps because at first it was, how do we re-architect the tech stack to scale? How do we make sure that everything that is manual is automated? How do we make sure we're being as efficient and as productive as possible? And now we're going back and saying, okay, now how do you do that AI first?
I was just going to say, yeah, your whole job has probably completely changed over the last 2 years.
It completely changed, but what's cool about it for a RevOps perspective is RevOps is starting to become kind of the center of the AI transformation.
Absolutely.
And because everything of how every element, every aspect of how you're running the business, you're now thinking about AI first. And so you kind of had to adapt and figure out how to do that. And we've done an incredible job at ZoomInfo. I'm so grateful to have had that experience in the last couple of years because there's no way I'd be able to be doing what I'm going to do next if I hadn't done that.
I mean, my takeaway from that journey is you've taken a lot of leaps. Like none of these career moves were jobs you had done before, experience you had. A lot of them were just jumping into something completely new. So jumping into something new isn't necessarily new for you.
No.
But this is maybe the biggest jump that you've done or the biggest change. So talk me through what led up to this, your thought process around why leave corporate, take this leap. Like, I'm sure it didn't happen suddenly, right? It was probably something you've been thinking about for a long time.
Yeah. I remember the first time that I ever said it out loud. I was working with a coach, and that was, I think it would have been at the end of 2021, maybe the early 2022. And I remember it happening right after my mom died. And, you know, my mom died in her 60s. My dad died in his early 60s. And I just felt even more urgency than I had ever felt before of like, go out and live this life and take risks and live it as big as possible. And I remember at that point talking to that coach being like, I want to be an entrepreneur. And she was really pushing me towards that. But I think that there was so much else in my life that I hadn't figured out. And I was living in Toronto, and, you know, we don't have to get into all of that. But there were some things I needed to figure out first. And then I remember speaking to another coach about it, which would have been the beginning of last year. And I had this conversation with her about my career and what I wanted to do. And I remember saying to her, well, you know, if I'm still single at the end of this year, I'll definitely quit my job and become an entrepreneur. But if I'm not, and I want to like get married and have kids, like maybe I'll stay in big tech because of maternity leave. And I remember her saying to me like that's ridiculous, and really pushing me.
Right, like you're living your life because of logistics versus because of what your dream is.
Yeah, and it was like always kind of logistics. And then even fast forward to the end of last year, I don't know, it was like September, October, and I was on a date with someone. And I remember talking about wanting to be an entrepreneur. And I think I was getting closer at that point. And I remember being very vulnerable and sharing, so many men that I've met or that I could see myself with had said like, oh, if you do that, like you can't get married and be a mom, like you can't do both. And I remember on that particular date, that person said to me like, no, you absolutely can do both. You just have to have the right partner. And that really stuck with me. Like, I think that like that also kind of nudged me forward.
Yeah.
And then honestly, the thing that I think that got me quite literally over the line was when I was running the New York Marathon. One, just training up to that point, like showing myself that I could have that kind of discipline for myself, through myself, without someone else telling me not what to do, but having to do it for someone else. That no, I can say I'm going to do something and do it even when it's hard, 5 days a week for 4 months, and wake up at 4 a.m. when it was really hot in Miami and go run 17 miles. Like if I can do that, I can do anything. It was during the New York Marathon, and I was going to say,
during, like, while you're running the marathon.
Was during the marathon. And I don't know. I mean, I was going to say, I don't know if you remember this, but it was all I talked about for 4 months.
That's true.
I became obsessed with running a 3:30. Remember, I was like, if I don't run a 3:30, I will die. I will fail. It was all I thought about. I was cycling on it. It was like what literally kept me up at night. And I remember I'm running the New York Marathon, and I'm running fast, and I am on pace. And I get to Brooklyn, and Brooklyn is like a party, and everyone said like how great it was going to be.
Right.
And I remember feeling panicked. Like there's hundreds of thousands of people. They're screaming at you. The road is narrowing. And instead of being really excited, I remember, like I can feel it in my chest right now as I'm talking about, like I was completely overwhelmed, and I got this terrible cramp. Like, and I'd never gotten a runner's cramp before. I trained for 4 months. I had never gotten the runner's cramp.
Wow.
And I was like, holy shit, is this what they talk about? And I felt myself slow down, and I didn't stop, and I kept going, and I was maybe at 13 or 14. And I had this moment where I realized, oh my gosh, like
you're not going to hit it.
I'm going to cry. No, I realized in that moment, like I'm not, for the first time in my life, I've set a goal and I'm not going to hit it. And I was like, and shit, I've got 12 miles left. And so I was like, all right, this isn't going to be perfect. Like this isn't going to be that Instagram post, that LinkedIn post that I had never run a day in my life. And I'm going to go out and I'm going to run a 3:30. And I've only been running, 7 months at that point. Like it's not going to be that moment, but I'm going to finish the race. And it's going to look different, but like I'm going to get through it, and I'm going to learn so much from that. And so I kept going, and I remember at mile 20 or 21, and I just like wanted to quit. And it was like all of those intrusive thoughts, and everything in me wanted to stop, because it's like, you're not going to hit the goal. It's not going to be perfect. And I was like, at that point, it didn't matter, because I was doing it. I was going to run through the finish line, not to that finish line. I was running through it. And no matter what, I did it. And there always could be another marathon. There always could be another race, but it didn't matter that I was doing it and it was going to be perfect. It was that I did it. And that to me became like the metaphor of becoming an entrepreneur, leaving corporate, and like just running the race. Like it might not be perfect. The first thing I might do might fail, and it's okay, because I'll never stop trying.
There's always another marathon.
I really don't want to run another marathon. Like, please don't make me do that.
There's other fitness competitions.
Yeah, there will always be something else. It's just getting up and going, and it's that thing. It's that one foot in front of the other, and that's how I've felt the last 90 days. So 2 days after that marathon, I quit. I gave 90 days notice.
Wow.
And I handed them a 90-day exit plan. I handed them a list of vetted candidates. number one on that list is taking my job. We won't get into that.
That is the way to leave.
And there's been so many moments in the last 90 days that have been like those last 6 miles where it was like so many doubts, so many, voices saying like, is this the right decision? Maybe you should stop. Maybe you should reconsider. But when you have those moments, when you don't have the runner's high, it was just like, okay, one foot in front of the other. You're going to run through that finish line and you're going to be on the other side of it. And if this doesn't work, there'll be another race.
What was it about the realization that you weren't going to hit your goal that made you feel like taking this leap was okay, or it was the right time?
Yeah.
Was it just that it was like, it's okay to fail, or it's okay for it not to be perfect?
Yeah.
Or did you just feel like it doesn't matter and it doesn't need to look some perfect, beautiful way? Like what shift happened? Like what was the difference between you when you started that race versus when you left?
Yeah. I think when I thought about leaving, it was like, if I leave my job, it has to be the perfect startup idea. I can't leave this job and corporate unless it's a sure thing. I can't leave unless it's the next $1 billion company. I don't know, because what I had was pretty great. I've built such a beautiful life because of corporate, and it's given me so much success that's allowed me to curate everything that I ever thought I wanted, or close to it, with a couple exceptions. And so I just thought there's no way I can leave unless it's going to be perfect. And I think realizing that if I leave and this idea isn't perfect, if it's not exactly the thing, then pivot, you find the next thing, or you try again. It's me betting on myself, and that no matter what, I know that I will keep going no matter how hard it is, and if that's not perfect. And like, I think that has been hard for me in so many elements of my life, is like the pressure on myself to be perfect.
Yeah. And it seems like, your career path and all these jobs that you pitched yourself for, it's like you got them. Every career move you've made, you've shot your shot, you've gotten it every time, and it feels like the marathon was like this breakthrough of like, you cannot hit it, and that's okay, and you're still going to be great, and there's always another marathon.
Oh my gosh, I will survive if I don't run at 3:30.
Maybe that's the most important lesson you could learn as you're about to start this new chapter.
Yeah.
So tell me, what are you most afraid of, and what are you most excited about? You can choose which one to start with.
Yeah, I think the fear, what's funny? The fear isn't about failing at the next thing, truly. I think sure, there's uncertainty and I get a little bit nervous, but I know now I've kind of got to that point where if it's not the first thing, it'll be the second or the third or whatever. I will figure it out. I have faith in myself. I think it's the fear you can't have it all, right? So, and I'm choosing to do this and choosing to believe that you can, and sure, you're going to make sacrifices, right? So if everything in your life is on a pie chart, there's going to be different, sizes of slices, and that'll fluctuate over time depending on where you are. But I just have to believe that you don't have to choose between career or starting a business and maybe eventually being a mother and a wife. And I think when the fear really creeps in, that's what comes up for me.
That makes sense. Just the trade-offs of the bets that you want to make in the future.
Yeah.
I think you've proven so far that you can have what you want. And I think you will find that in the future.
Thank you. Well, and you will be there to hear about it and help me brainstorm if I need to pivot.
Always. So, and then what are you most excited about?
I'm excited about the future. And that sounds broad, but I'm excited about what I don't even know is going to happen yet. And everything that is in my life now is so much better than I ever imagined. And if 7-year-old Tessa could have see right now what we're doing, where we're sitting, my life, where we live, she would be so excited and wouldn't believe it. And so I don't know, I'm excited that maybe it turns out better than I could have ever imagined.
Yeah, 7-year-old you could have never dreamed that you made it this far.
No.
So maybe you today could never dream of how far you'll go in the future too.
Yeah, I think that's the point. And I think no matter what, everything that's happened, no matter how hard, progress and the growth has been so rewarding. And I never want to get to a place where I feel like I've stopped growing. And there's so many things that I figured out, but there's so many things that I still have to figure out. And I know that this challenge, this opportunity, the privilege I have that I can make this leap and not be so afraid because of the things that I've done to feel secure enough to do it. You know, I just know I have to do this to continue to grow. And I want to spend my entire life growing, even if I fail a lot.
Yeah, it's like everything you've done between your 7-year-old self and now has given you the freedom to be able to do this.
Yeah, I think so, definitely. And I think about where I came from and where I am now, and I have so much gratitude, but you just have to bet on yourself.
Yeah. So I've been dying to ask this since the beginning of this conversation. What are you doing next?
Well, I'm not going to tell. No, it's funny. I'll partially share. So the first part is I am going to launch a RevOps AI agency. So predominantly focused on taking on a few select partnerships, re-architecture, AI first re-architecture for operational organizations, for RevOps organizations. I am in the process of finalizing my first contract, which I'm so excited about. And then a few select AI startups where I'll help them set up 0 to 1 AI first RevOps, but with scale in mind. So a lot of what you're seeing are incredible go-to-market engineers getting jobs as RevOps leaders at these 0 to 1 companies. But they don't necessarily know what scales. And so if you actually think, okay, how do we build this that will help us as we rapidly grow, which AI startups are going to rapidly grow, we're seeing that. And so I'm really excited about that. So a very few select partnerships, because I do need to keep some of my time for what I'm building that I'm not going to talk about yet, that I'm stealth on, that I'm excited about. And so more to come on that. And then this third thing that I'll be focused on is actually having a podcast, a little less corporate, where I want to bring people on. And like you stepped into the place of me today, but I will be the host of this podcast. And I want to talk to people that have done this before, that are already on the other side, that aren't 5 days out, that are 5 months post-corporate or 5 years post-corporate, and understand what got them there, but now how it's going. And I hope that it inspires other people to choose to take the leap and choose this type of growth and maybe have a little bit more confidence or inspiration to do it, because it is so scary.
I feel like the best podcasts are people that put something out there that they wish they would have had, or that they needed at a time. And it feels like that's what you're doing with this, is creating the thing that you would have wanted on this journey that you're on as well.
Yeah. And I don't do things or position myself into things because I think I'm going to be some sort of inspiration for people. But you know, sitting here and thinking about it and talking about it with you, like I do hope that other people can make this leap, because I think that there's so many people I talked to in the last few months when I started sharing that I was doing this, like, oh my God, I wish I could do that. I would love to do that. I would do that, or if I wasn't going through this, or if I didn't have that, or if I didn't have to think about this. And there's so many limiting beliefs or people that have these dreams that they're just too afraid to kind of take the leap. And if it's one person I talk to that gives them that confidence or inspiration, then it'll have all been worth it.
Absolutely. I talk to people all the time that are like, I hate my job. I'm, struggling. I'm pushing through. I'm trying to just find the willpower every day, who talk about these dreams that they have. And it's hard to take the leap. I get that. And so I think there's going to be a lot of people out there that are following along and wanting to learn what the other side actually looks like. Was it worth it?
Yeah. Well, the other thing is there's this idea like of work-life balance, and people are always seeking work-life balance. And I've never believed in work-life balance. I've always believed in work-life integration. I remember when I worked in EMEA, when I worked in the UK, it was like, we are working to live, not living to work. And there was that whole concept. But really, when I think about my belief system around it, it's all about integrating your life with your work, having some sort of purpose in your work and figuring out that unique blend that works for you. And I think you have more autonomy when you're an entrepreneur to have work-life integration that's really by design. And that's what I'm hoping to curate for myself and, my future partner and family.
I think that is the perfect place to wrap. This was so fun.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for you. I wish you the most incredible next 5 days.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it will be a roller coaster. And I'm just glad that you'll be sharing your journey along the way.
Well, please pick up my calls. Because I'm going to be freaking out. I can't even believe that we're here, that after all this time, I have 1 week left. And thank you for being the host of the very first podcast. No one after this compare the first host to the next host because you did a fantastic job. Shout out and thank you to our executive producer, Luca, who helped us set this up.
We got to show some of the behind the scenes because it's been hilarious.
This will evolve. It'll evolve. But for those of you watching or listening, we've got quite the setup in my living room and on my sofa.
I love it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you, Sylvia.
Thank you.
All right. Onwards and upwards.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.